And that was when we had first moved into the house. That got my attention.
Yeah, because I was going to say, like when I was like a young kid, my parents lived in Seattle, Washington, but my dad grew up in the Bay Area, in Oakland, San Diego area, and all the relatives were still living in California. And summer times we would go there, and one summer, my uncle and my grandmother said, "Come up for the summer," and I didn't want to go, but I got forced to go. And my grandmother had this big bedroom, and we're talking apartments. Back then it was like 1840s. That's how, when it was built, roughly. And I remember, the first night being in that bedroom, and I saw a shadow come out of the big walk-in closet and kind of wrap around the room and then go back into the closet. And it scared me so bad, and I told my grandmother the next morning about it. She goes, "Yeah, I've been living here for 30-some years, and yes, it happens all the time." It scared me. I said, "Hey, I'm going to my uncle's tomorrow."
Yeah, it's like, well, when we first bought this property, a gentleman saw us working outside, stopped, came up and introduced himself. He had lived here as a renter for 20-some years, and he said, "This house is haunted." And my initial reaction was to kind of stifle a laugh, and I'm thinking that explains the half-empty booze bottles we're finding hidden around the property, but I didn't say that.
Oh, wow.
But he told us some things that happened to him, and some of those very things that he described have occurred, and we've experienced them. So he was indeed very sincere and very accurate.
Oh, wow. So what's going on at this stage, or has it settled down?
The main thing that we get here now, well, just last week, my wife and I saw a shadow figure in our garage as we were backing out. This was on a late morning. The garage itself is relatively new construction. It's built from an old barn. It's timber frame, but there was not a building there before. But we distinctly saw a shadow figure, semi-transparent, black, human-shaped, moving across the back of the garage.
Yeah. I wouldn't park my car in there again.
And that's not something we typically see in the house. I've only seen the shadow I told you about earlier. My wife one time saw a partial shadow figure kind of forming, but not completely forming.
Oh.
But other people have seen full entities, full-bodied apparitions. We have not.
Have you interviewed any former owners of the house, or?
Yes, it was in the same family from 1869 until we purchased it. The brothers we dealt with grew up in the house, and they said they did not have experiences in this house, but they did in the house built later, another family home just down the road. So.
Well, a lot of times, I hate to say it, when people do have experiences, they just don't say anything because, they want to sell the house. I mean, there's a lot.
I don't think that they were hiding anything, because they did tell us about the experiences at the other house, and we weren't bothered by it. We had not had any experiences before we bought. But, my own grandmother, a Southern Baptist minister's wife, told me about living in a haunted house in Louisiana. They spent some time there. And my grandmother was a very straightforward person, the last person in the world that I would expect to be telling me ghost stories. But she said she woke up one night, they're sleeping in bed, and there was a gentleman standing at the foot of the bed in old-fashioned clothing watching her, or watching them. She said they looked, made eye contact, and then he just disappeared.
That would really scare me.
Yeah. Other times they had the covers pulled off them at night. She said one time someone sat on the edge of the bed, the mattress went down, there was an impression of a person, but nobody was there.
Oh, wow.
And my thought, I used to think, and I never told her this, but I thought, gee, Grandma, maybe you should lay off the spicy Cajun food before you go to bed. But, of course, I never told her that. But
Well,
I now have a very different outlook. I very much believe her.
yeah, it was really funny. Like with my, I've had a couple of weird things happen in my life, but like I managed that business for 16 years as a general manager, and I had all these different employees through the years. The first couple of people told me that. The fact the owners told me that the place was haunted, and I kind of go, and then all of a sudden, when you have an ex-Navy SEAL come up and say, "Hey, I'm not going down that basement anymore." And then, then you have all these other people. It all happened, and it could go sometimes weeks and weeks and weeks, and nothing would happen. I mean, I was there for probably 15 years before it happened to me, and I tell you, it scared me. It just you hear footsteps going up, the staircase, which was going up to actually the old part of the old hotel. Hearing footsteps and muffled talking and, but somehow that, getting that tap on the shoulder to where it kind of really hurt, kind of told me, hey, whatever here is not very friendly.
Yeah, and I get kind of the opposite feeling in the house here. There's a very good vibe. The only time I ever really was frightened, and I wasn't thinking paranormal, it was a Sunday morning, beautiful sunshiny day. My father and I had torn out the old ductwork from the old furnace in preparation for having our new furnace put in. I walked into the living room, and down below me it sounded like somebody was taking a sledgehammer to the old ductwork that we had taken down. I mean, I could almost feel the vibration through my feet from the floor. I thought someone had broken in. I grabbed a crowbar, ran down the stairs. As soon as I got to the bottom of the stairs, to the doorway to the basement room where this was happening, all of a sudden it was totally still. Nothing was stirring. There was no dust, nothing. Had it been an animal, I'd have had to have seen it or heard it scurry away. Had it been a person, there was nowhere they could have gone to hide. And it was nothing. And that one definitely got my attention, but it's kind of funny. My brother-in-law was helping out with wiring, and he was working third shift. He was here during the day. He showed up at my work. I came out to the counter to talk to him. He says, "You owe me a new pair of underwear." I said, "Oh, no, he's an Army veteran, generally pretty fearless," and he then proceeded to describe the exact same occurrence that I had experienced, only I had never shared that with him. He would have had no way of knowing. I said, "Well, was there anything down there?" He said, "I wasn't about to find out." He said, "I packed my tools up and I came here."
Yeah, well, I would too. So, from the type of work you did as editor and all that for newspapers, I believe,
Yes.
What got you to write the book? And can you tell us, a little bit about the book without giving the information away too much?
Yeah, it was a case where I would share some of the things happening at the house with some of my coworkers and friends, and knowing me as a writer, a number of people were encouraging me to write about this. Other people had the experiences. People said, "Hey, we don't believe this stuff, but if you're telling us this, we believe you." And I thought, no, I really don't want to jeopardize my career, as a reliable writer by writing about ghosts and the paranormal. But what really convinced me to write the book was a trip I made to Ghettysburg, Pennsylvania, with my grandson over his spring break. It'll be 3 years ago next month. And as part of the trip, it was a trip for the history, not anything paranormal, although Gettysburg is well known for that, to keep my grandson entertained. He was 14 at the time. I was registered as a journalist, so I was offered the opportunity to go on a ghost investigation.
Oh, wow.
So I thought, yeah, this will entertain Connor. I told him about it. He said, "Yeah, Grandpa, that sounds cool." So I call up. They set me up. Said, "We'll take you to Sachs Bridge." And I'm thinking, what? Sachs Bridge? It's an old covered bridge. No, take me to the battlefield or a field hospital, somewhere a little more exciting. They said, no, you will like Sachs Bridge. So we show up. It is to be a 2-hour investigation. Very well-versed young lady, took us there. We had our choice of different ghost investigating equipment. We chose electromagnetic field meters, a laser net to detect movement. But I was kind of intrigued by the ghost box, the spirit box that rotates rapidly through radio stations, creating a white noise background and basically like real-time EVPs. And that sounds cool. Well, I did learn a lot about the Sachs Bridge area from the investigator, that actually this was the area where the Confederate Army left their most badly wounded people, a lot of them as they're retreating, people that they didn't think could survive a wagon trip south, and some of their wounded POWs also were left there. Basically, the entire area was one vast field hospital of very badly wounded men.
Yeah, it sounds like where a lot would have died.
And a lot of activity reported there. Now, we spent 2 hours doing an investigation, and the best we got in the 2 hours was we did get a blip on the ghost box. The investigator asked question after question, but she did say, can you tell us what color coat one of us is wearing? We did get a very clear blue over the ghost box. I was underwhelmed, to say the least. She seemed startled and saw a shadow figure off in the distance. I didn't see it, but she seemed sincere. We go back across the bridge. My grandson saw a shadow figure off in the trees. He was very visibly startled, but that had been it. So our 2 hours is almost over. Other people had been there left. We had the bridge to ourselves. So we're sitting there, and we started getting hits on the ghost box. The investigators asking, is anybody with us? Yes. How many of you are with us? We got 7, 8, 9. Pretty clear answers for a ghost box. This is cool. She says, well, what year is this? And it was a bit garbled, but it was like 1863. The 3 was very clear. The syllable number matched 1863. That's kind of cool. Well, it's dying off. It's getting cold. Our 2 hours is up. She went to start the car, and I'm thinking, okay, if, from my knowledge of the time period, what if it's as a soldier, what would get him going? I said, do you like jokes? And we got a very clear, yes, sir. Thought, okay. Says, do you like music? And we got a very clear, of course, almost with a sense of he was insulted that I would even ask. And my grandson, quick thinking as he was, says, can you play for us? And we got this very clear, absolutely. And we started hearing guitar music. About this time, the investigator came back, and her, I still remember the look on her face, her mouth's open, her eyes are kind of bugged out, looking at the ghost box as we're getting music, like mandolin kicked in. Very clearly not radio stations coming through. This was, measures of guitar music and mandolin fading in and out. Finally, after maybe 10 minutes or so, it was pretty well fading out, and I said, wow, you're good. And we got a very clear thank you. I said, can you play some more? And a very polite, yes, sir. And we got more music. This time harmonica kicked in. And I'll tell you, I'm thinking, okay, this is a hoax. People putting this on just thought they could pull one over the journalist who's going to write a glowing review of their ghost investigation. And I'm just kind of playing along. But then later, after the music faded, we were getting some very clear answers. She said, can you tell us your name? We got a very clear on sound. It was like 2 syllables on, and then it sounded like something ended in an S. And she kept saying, well, I'm sorry, can you enunciate more clearly? You could almost sense a strain, like this entity wanted us to know who he was. And finally we gave up, and he finally said, like, how old are you? We got a 20, and then captain. and we got various things. This went on for about an hour after the investigation was over. When it finally really ended,